Mr. Miyagi.
Jennifer.
Danny.
Bean.
Peyton.
Although it is not Halloween yet, it is never too early in the year to get in the spooky season. Sit down, get comfy, grab your cat or dog, and maybe turn a light on. Because you're about to feel as though someone or something is watching you as you listen to the horrifying history of the infamous Conjuring house, inspired by Ed and Lorraine Warren's case files. The eerie history that went on in this house of horrors, the dark events that led this house to obtain its malevolent name, and the current state of the house contributes to its popularity in the paranormal community. You may have watched the movie or done your own research about the Conjuring house, but if not, I will tell you the basic history of the house. The farmhouse was built in 1736 in Harrisville, Rhode Island. It currently sits on 8 acres of land, and back then it was known as the Arnold's Estate. It was known as the Arnold's Estate because 8 generations of that family lived in the farm once it was built. The Arnold's family, some of the members of the Arnold's family died on the property or in the house in tragic ways. There is recorded of 2 suicides by death in the attic, 1 suicide by poison, the rape and murder of 11-year-old Prudence Arnold, 2 drownings, and the passing of 4 men who froze to death, as well as other tragic deaths, according to History vs. Hollywood. The Conjuring house is home to a dark and death-filled past. According to dictionary.com, the word conjure means to call upon a spirit or devil by spell. So what led this house to obtain the title the Conjuring House? Well, it all started when the Perrin family moved in. Roger and Carolyn, along with their 5 daughters, moved in January of 1971. They moved in the house looking for a house to grow a big family. On the first day at the house, during a snowstorm, they experienced the first paranormal experience. Their daughter Andrea went in the kitchen, bringing a box, and she noticed this figure standing in the kitchen. Her mother then walked in and wondered who she was staring at. The figure then disappeared. That was their very first experience in the house because there was no other man in the house. From there, the activity started small and slowly started making its way up. Fry Fane states that one week at the house, during the night, the young daughter Cindy would start to hear voices lingering throughout her room. The voices said that there were 7 soldiers buried in the walls. It is said that the Conjuring house was built on the burial grounds of soldiers during the Revolutionary War. The spirits also liked to torment Carolyn. While Carolyn would be in the living room, the room next door, which was the kitchen, she would hear the broom sweeping against the tiles. She would go in the kitchen to see who it was, and the broom was resting against the wall. She would then sit back down in the living room. She'd hear the broom sweeping the tiles again. She would go into the kitchen and see that the broom was in a completely different spot than it was prior. The girls also started to see and notice spirits around the house. They would notice spirits that were harmless and then some angry spirits as well. The activity then soon started to worsen. Andrea, the oldest daughter, would start to smell rotting flesh throughout the house, and her bed would levitate at night. The family also feared going in the basement due to a cold, stinky presence that lingered down there. According to ATI, the spirit that was mainly believed to be tormenting the parents was a witch that lived on the property in the mid-1800s. She was rumored to have murdered her neighbor's baby as a sacrifice since she was a witch. But there was no trial taking place and she was not tried. It is believed that she haunted and cursed anyone who lived in the house for control of the household. Without the funds, the parents could not afford to relocate or move, so they were stuck living in the house dealing with its hauntings. To help with those hauntings, though, they ended up contacting the most famous paranormal investigators in the world, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed is a demonologist, and his wife, Lorraine, is a clairvoyant who can see and speak to the dead. During that 9 years of living there, the parents ended up contacting the Warrens several times. To put a stop and make peace with the spirits haunting them, the Warrens ended up doing a seance to communicate with those spirits. During that seance, though, the evil witch that liked to torment Carolyn ended up possessing her. While she was possessed, she ended up levitating off the ground and being slammed against the wall, and she ended up getting a concussion. In the movie, it's portrayed that she has an exorcism done, but it was actually a seance in real life. Once the seance was over, Roger was furious with what had happened to Carolyn, so he threw the Warrens out, and that was the last time the Warrens had ever visited the Conjuring house. After 9 years of living in a real-life haunted house, the parents finally saved enough money and they booked it out of the Conjuring house as soon as they could. After her time out, oldest daughter Andrea ended up writing 3 books about her experience in the Conjuring house. The book is titled House of Darkness, House of Light, and you can still read the books today. After the parents moved out, the spirits haunting the house remained. The current owner of the house is Jacqueline Nunez. She bought the house in May for $1.5 million. Though Nunez hasn't experienced anything yet since she probably just moved in, but the previous owners have. The previous owners moved in there in 2019, and they also stated that one experience that they had was while they were in their bedroom. In their doorway, they noticed that this apparition was standing right in their doorway, and once the spirit realized that they were both awake, it vanished into thin air. The uncertainty and the powerful energy found at the previous house forced the previous owners to not stay there anymore, which is why they sold the house. The previous owners had a paranormal business that Nunez ended up continuing. The paranormal business consists of day tours and overnight stays, which are currently booked for the rest of 2022, according to the official website of the Conjuring house. Some guests of the tour reported that they felt physical touches, that they would see apparitions, and that the basement was haunted by a dark entity. The Conjuring house is America's most infamous haunted house and is known as the most paranormally active location around the world. Today, I went over the dark and sinister history of the Conjuring house, the frightening events that led the Arnold's estate to be known as the Conjuring house, and the current state of the home and what it has to offer. You may think that this story is a hoax or fiction, but you will soon learn that the fictionalized film was nothing compared to the reality of the home. This is a house of horrors due to its dark history, the sinister name it was given after all the malicious events that took place, and the current state of the home. When you go to bed tonight, remember what those evil, malicious spirits would do to the parents when the lights went out, or even when they were on. The Conjuring movie did a good job of portraying the tragic events that took place at the home, but will never compare to the reality of what the parents would experience there. As Carolyn Perrin once explained, "We left the farm, but the farm never left us."
Wow, very nicely done. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.